All right, guys, welcome to the garage, Twisted Grip Garage. Usually working on dirt bikes and four-wheelers, but today's video is for some guys in my local BMW group, NC E30. Check them out on Facebook if you got one of these old BMWs and you like to talk old cars. Also, if you want to see more content on the BMWs, let me know in the comments or something, because like I said, I typically do dirt bikes and four-wheelers and stuff, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting into some car videos if there's something that I can help with. So like I said, today we've got a cluster here, and what we're doing is we're going to try to flow in some solder. All right, so I'm sure some of you guys have read on the forums or looked up on the internet and heard people talking about flowing in solder or resoldering the pins and connectors and stuff. So the issue that a lot of these things have that I've learned, now this is all just, I'm learning as I go with some of this stuff, but the harness where it plugs in here and here, this is an 84 M10 car, so newer clusters might be a little bit different, but I would probably think that pretty much any cluster from like an early or late 80s to early 90s BMW is probably going to be very, very similar, with this kind of a, I don't know, old school looking PC board backing. So right, I don't know if you can see it in there. Let me flip it up here. So right there, that group of solder is for those pins, right? The way I found this, and the way you may want to look into yours, is I unplugged the harness from the back and I found ground on my car. Like, I just hooked it to the battery, and then I put my multimeter right there to ohm it out, just kind of check the loop, see if you can find ground, and then take your probe and probe your pins on your harness where it plugs into the back, okay, on the harness itself, not the cluster, and that'll help you find ground. Now, the reason that I decided to try flowing solder in is because I found my ground on my harness, but when I plugged it in, when I plugged this board in and hit a probe where ground should be, I wasn't getting ground. So what I did was I took this bolt off, and that gave me access to this all these little pins a little bit better. So let me pull this off again, and I'm kind of gonna just do a, I don't know, I'll just quickly show you kind of what it means to flow fresh solder in, see if it makes sense to you guys. All right, so let me pull this and we'll come right back. Okay guys, so I got the gauges pulled out, the temp gauge and the fuel gauge. When you pull these out, keep in mind there's a little tiny washer on that center threaded stud. You don't want to lose it. And there's also one on the back side where the thing goes through. That's part of your ground. So that little circle right there in the middle is your ground, and these are your signals, power and signal. I'm not sure which is which, but that's what makes your temp and your fuel gauge work, right? Again, not sure which is which, but it really doesn't matter, because if one doesn't work or you got a bad ground, none of it's going to work. All right, so I've got a soldering iron that's maybe up to temp now. I'm going to try to show you guys how I do this one-handed, so I'm probably going to burn myself, but again, fine tip. If you can find one that's smaller, that would be even better. Get some fresh solder, and again, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but essentially we're just making sure that the solder is hitting the old solder and the pin. So again, I don't know if you can see that, but that's basically what we're doing, right? Man, you really can't see that. Sorry, GoPro. Come on, GoPro. But yeah. So again, that's the gist of it. It's kind of hard to pick up on camera. Just get you a little dab of solder on your soldering iron and just check all your pins. Be sure not to overlap any pins that shouldn't be double, touching or whatever. Like for this particular cluster, this pin and this pin are okay to touch because that's your That's your ground. And it doesn't take much solder. You really don't need much solder at all, because all you're doing is getting enough on your iron that it helps melt what's already there and kind of gives it like a fresh bond, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's what we're doing when we're flowing solder in on the pins. And again, that's the pin for the plug for the harness on each side. Other models may be a little bit different. Like, I didn't touch these pins here because I don't know what plugs in there. I don't have anything for that yellow plug on my car. There's no harness for it. While you got this out, it's a good idea to just go ahead and clean the ground up real good. You know, flow your solder, clean these things up, and where your PC board, where your batteries and stuff are, clean those little prongs. If you want to take this to the next step, you can actually take the screws out of the tack and out of the speedo. There is some solder pins on the back side of some of this stuff that I don't know if you can see it. I don't think we can get a good picture of that. Maybe on the top side here. Nope, no good picture. So there is some pins up in there, and you can take those out and solder them. But that's, I think the biggest problem area is like this and this, right? So if you have like that intermittent temp gauge bouncing around, that's probably what it is. Another step that I'll show you that you may or may not want to mess with is actually on your harness itself. So again, I know this is going to be kind of hard to see. I'm trying to use a GoPro in a dark place with no mount, no hands. Take your plug and pop the cover off of it. Like mine had his little zip tie here, but I'll just pop that off and expose the wires. So now all you have is this little black plug, right? If you look down in there, you can see straight through on a lot of these, and that's where like it's, you know, it's like a connector that's open. And just to make sure that I've got good connection on my plug to my pins, on the sides right here where the metal's exposed, I actually took this little pick and just kind of pushed them close. You know what I'm saying? Like, give it a little push, and that just kind of closes that little metal gap. That way when you plug this up to the pins, it pushes on tighter and gives a little better contact. I don't know that that's a necessity after we do the solder stuff, but I did it just in case, because I really didn't want to take this thing back out again and again and again, because that's what I've done so far. But again, if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If this video doesn't work and there's something you want to see a little more specifically on the whole soldering section, let me know in the comments, and I don't know, maybe I'll take another 5 minutes and redo the video or something. But I will say this: be careful, because if you damage your traces, you might not be able to get it to solder. Like this one here, this one's for my power, and it feeds the fuel gauge power and some other stuff, I'm sure. But the pin was messed up, so I pulled this pin here, which was a dead pin. Like, it didn't do anything. I mean, there's nothing coming off of it, no trace or anything. I pulled the pin from the back side, pushed it up through here, and tried to resolder it, and I damaged my heat trace, or my little circuit board thing, and now I can't get solder to stick to it for some reason. So yeah, just be careful when you're doing it. Go slow, take your time, and yeah, it should work. That should fix most of the flickering issues. If it doesn't, then you may just need a new board or something, but this is worth a shot on these old things. So thanks for watching, and good luck.